What's up, everyone, and welcome to another Voice of Apple Valley podcast. I'm your host, Steve Famiano. Great to be back with you as we take another trip down the political lane and talk about local politics here in Apple Valley. Of course, the 2026 Town Council election is going to be taking place this November, and the campaign is rolling hot and heavy right now, and specifically the mayoral race that is going to be heating up here, and we're going to get into that right now on this podcast with my guest that's joining me. So we've got three guys that are running for mayor of Apple Valley this year. We've got the incumbent, Scott Nassif. Nassif has been on the Apple Valley Council for 24 years. He's looking for another 2-year term. That would bring him up to 26 total years on the Apple Valley Town Council. We've also got two other challengers jumping in the race this year, which I think is great because the last mayoral election, Scott Nassif had no competition whatsoever at all, and he ran unopposed. I really don't even think Scott Nassif put up one campaign sign or even did one campaign event because he didn't really need to because nobody was challenging him. So we've got two challengers to Scott Nassif this year. One is Robert Lucero. Of course, Robert Lucero joined me on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast about a month ago, and my guest today is the other candidate, and his name is David Dencker, and I'm going to bring David on right now to join me here on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast. David, how you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Doing good.
All right, great to see you. Of course, I did have you on a previous podcast with me, and that was when you were somewhat in the heat of doing your town audit stuff that you were doing, and we were talking about KFC and all that good stuff. At that time, you had not announced that you were running for mayor of Apple Valley, but now you are an official candidate for mayor of Apple Valley. So this podcast is definitely going to be a little bit different than the other one I did with you because we're going to get into some issues and different things like that. And I have a very important issue I want to talk with you about here as soon as I can. But what I want to do, and I'm going to do this with all the candidates moving forward, I'm going to give all the candidates a few minutes to somewhat explain themselves, maybe give some personal details, tell the people watching a little bit about their background. So let's do that because there's a lot of things I don't even know about you. So
Okay.
let's hear a little bit about your history.
Let's see. There's a lot of people, excuse me, Steve. There's a lot of people asking me about like my resume or my experience and insinuating that I just nothing, I don't know anything, what have you. A little bit about my resume. So I graduated from 2 correctional academies. I worked as a correctional officer for 4 years until I suffered a knee injury, and that ended that career. When I left correctional field, I bought a semi truck, and I was an owner operator truck driver for 9 years. 95% of my work right here in the high desert. I was hauling asphalt, sand, rock, stuff like that out of the local quarries. And I did that for, like I said, 9 years. I went to work for the school district after that. While I was at the school district, I for a couple of years was the CSEA union president. And I did that. I worked there for about 4 years. And currently I'm working as a safety coordinator for a construction company where, I keep track of all the training, all the pre-scheduled maintenance on 40 pieces of heavy equipment, like bulldozers, stuff like that. So I'm in charge of the safety program, what I'm doing now. So that's a little bit about my work history. So the people out there who were wondering, like, what have I done? Well, that's what I've done.
So you're getting a lot of questions, of course, which you should, because you're running for mayor of Apple Valley from voters who want to know a little bit more about you. I mean, there's, like I said,
Sure.
I had no idea. I had no idea that you were in corrections at one point.
Yeah, for 4 years I was a correctional officer. Yes.
And you said something
Yep.
about your knee. What, you had a knee injury? Is that what took you out of that
Yeah.
profession?
Yeah, I had a knee injury, had surgery, and that pretty much ended that profession for me. So I had to pivot. So I ended up buying a semi, and for 9 years I was an owner operator.
So you went from. So well, let me ask you this. So if you had not had that knee injury, would you still be in corrections?
I'd probably be retired from corrections now.
Oh, really? It was that long ago?
Yeah, it was in I started my correctional career in 97. Like I said, went through 2 academies. My career ended with the Bureau of Prisons with a knee injury. And yeah, if I wouldn't have hurt my knee, I would have probably did 20 or 25 years and retired. But it wasn't in the cards. So
after that, you went into truck driving. That's kind of a that's a total opposite of corrections, isn't it? I mean, that's the little
well,
that's
my dad was an owner operator truck driver for 35 years. So when I got hurt, I had to pivot, right? So I got my Class A license. I bought a semi, and I drove truck. I drove truck for myself. I mean, I was an owner operator, so yeah, that's what I did.
yeah, and the next step. So you went from corrections to truck driver, and then this is the topic I actually want to get into you with about, and it's probably not going to be a very comfortable discussion, but I think it's important for the voters of Apple Valley to hear this because you talked about being with the Adelanto School District. So, how long were
Yeah,
you with the Adelanto School District? How long were you there?
I think I was there about 4 years.
About 4 years. And you, at
Yeah,
the time, were the union
I keep
president.
looking at your. I keep looking at your face on the left side of the screen, but it looks like I'm looking. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird, so I have to keep diverting back to the center because I keep looking at you over there. Anyways,
Oh, that's
go
okay.
ahead.
No, that's right. So, you were the union president for the CSEA. I always get those letters mixed up. It's CSEA, correct?
Yeah, the California School Employees Association. Yes, chapter president.
And what did you do at the Adelanto School District when you were employed there? What was your position?
So I started off there as a warehouseman. I worked in the warehouse. I delivered orders to different places. I delivered the mail, stuff like that. And ultimately, I got a position in human resources as I think I was a human resource technician. I think that's what it was called, personnel technician. And what I was doing is I had a partner that I worked with who wasn't in the union. She was like a management level person. But what we did was we hired the classified staff, custodians, bus drivers, those are classified staff. So we were instrumental in hiring the classified staff. We conducted the test, or we proctored the tests. We sent them to the clinic. I sent them to the clinic for physicals. We processed them and we brought them on board, and that's what we did. We were the classified onboarders. That's what we did.
So let me ask you this. How did you become the union president? What is the process for that? I mean, did you become the union president as soon as you were hired onto the district, or how does that work?
No, no. So what happened was obviously there's a good sized union there, about 450 plus members in this chapter. So I just was part of the union as an employee, and I started going to the chapter meetings and paying attention and not agreeing with things. I don't agree with things. I never go along with the narrative. I question things. If I don't like it, I question it. So I got involved that way. And eventually the union made me a sergeant at arms, I believe. So I would, conduct a pledge allegiance during our chapter meeting, stuff like that. But not very long after that, there was an opening for a vice president position, and the executive board asked if I wanted to become one of the vice presidents. I said sure. So I was just getting a little bit more involved, and ultimately it led to me becoming the president of the chapter. Kind of like town hall meetings, there's not a lot of engagement. A lot of people don't want to give up their time because it takes a lot of time. But I'm not that person. I gave up my time, and so ultimately I became the president. And yeah, it was basically another full-time job, but that's okay. I did it for the members. I didn't get paid one dime to do it, but yeah, it was a pretty busy position too, Steve.
So this is why I'm bringing this up, and like I said, this is probably not going to be a comfortable conversation, and it's a conversation that I believe needs to be had because. So I know you know. So when I had Robert Lucero on the podcast, I believe it was about a month and a half ago or so, maybe about a month ago here. Towards the end of the podcast, he held up some documents that looked to me, I couldn't tell what it was when I was recording the podcast at that time. Looked like court documents. It could just look. I've seen court documents before, and I was like, well, that looks like court documents. And so he brought this up and said that there were some issues with you at the Adelanto School District. And then ultimately you were fired for some disciplinary actions and things like that. So I've known about this. Of course, I stopped at, I believe it was the next council meeting, and I asked you about this because you had watched the podcast, and said, "Hey, you want to talk to me about this? You got anything to say?" And I remember I think you said to me, "Hey, I can explain it all," or it was something like that. Isn't that what you said to me? I could explain everything or something?
Yeah, 100%. I told you because I saw the podcast. I saw what he was doing. Evidently, Lucero's running a smear campaign against David Dencker. Evidently, he's not running against Nassif because all I hear is Dencker, 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 calling me names, doing whatever. And I don't care because that's not the way I roll. I'm trying to run a legit campaign about the issues. This guy's coming after me. He's got people coming after me. I don't care. I'll tell my story. There's a story behind it. I did get fired. He's 100% right. But there's a reason I got fired. And I don't
Well, and
know, and for lack of better.
let me stop you there. So that's what I
Yeah.
want to get into here. I want it because there's a lot of things being said on social media groups. There's a lot of accusations happening, and I'm going to be honest with everybody. There's certain people that have come after me, knowing that I've known about this and saying, "Why haven't I talked about it? Why haven't I reported it?" And I'm going to be upfront and honest. When that happened on the podcast with Lucero, I did some research on this, but employee files from school districts are private. I can't get that information, and neither can anybody in the public. The court document that I saw and I've read now that Lucero had, that court document is public information. So I think we have to kind of back up here because I know there's more to this story because some people have reached out to me, and you don't know this, but some people have reached out to me by private message who were members of your union and said, "Hey, all this stuff that's going on social media about this thing with Dave is inaccurate. There's a more to this story." That people have told me that. So there really hasn't been much I could say on this because I knew I was going to have you on a podcast and I wanted to talk about this issue. And like I said, I know it's not comfortable, but you are in a campaign, right? You are in a campaign to run for mayor of Apple Valley. So I do believe that the public deserves to know our candidate's history, not only your history, right? Not only the history that you have, but Nassif's history, Lucero's history. I think everybody's history should be brought up to the public. So that's why I'm having this conversation. So let's start. We're going to have to go backwards, I guess, because this lawsuit that you filed this lawsuit, correct? Because that's what the document says. It says David Dencker versus Adelanto School District. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's my lawsuit against them for railroading me because that was like my last ditch effort to keep my job because so that's my lawsuit. I sued them. Well, I don't even know if it's considered being sued. I got an attorney. The attorney filed a writ asking the court to review the administrative hearing that I had through my union because you can have an administrative hearing to hear the charges against you, whatever. And not everybody has. You have to request it. So of course I requested it because this was a railroading. Trust me when I tell you. And so I did get an attorney. The attorney filed it, and the district responded with what they said. These are the allegations. This is why we terminated them. And my attorney said basically that the hearing officer didn't consider all these facts. And I guess the court eventually said, well, it already went through an administrative hearing. We're not going to rehash it. That's the route that I chose. If I look back on it now, I shouldn't have went through the administrative hearing. I should have just let them fire me and got an attorney because then it would have went through the court, right? But because I chose that administrative route, they said it was already adjudicated. It's already been heard through an administrative process. The court's not going to do it again. Basically, that's what my attorney said. So,
well, let me.
So I lost.
Yeah, we only have so much time, so I got to understand this because all I have is that lawsuit documentation that you filed against the Adelanto School District. That's the information I have, and I have some people that have reached out to me and said, "Hey, you need to dig into this because there's more to this story." And like I said, I knew you were coming on the podcast, so I figured I'm just going to ask you because if I don't ask you, I don't think I'm doing my job as the voice of Apple Valley and trying to get to these things, right? So You got to help me out because I'm not a union guy. I'm not in a union, so I don't understand the process of the union. How did you get to the point of being fired? I'm trying to figure this out here, right? What
Okay.
can you kind of lead
Yeah.
us into
Let
what
me
happened?
let me set it up, Steve. I was the union president, okay? So as union president, I presided over the chapter meetings. So we have an e-board. I had two vice presidents, a secretary, treasurer, sergeant at arms, and a chief job steward. Chief job steward's job is to defend employees if they're facing discipline. So that's your executive board. So I presided over the executive board meetings, and I also presided over the chapter meetings. But I went a little bit further as president, and I put myself through the job steward training program. The union says, hey, we're holding this job steward training on a weekend, like on a Saturday. It's 8 hours, and there's 4 levels. Well, I put myself through all 4 levels. So I was a jacketed job steward. The union bought me this big blue satin jacket, right? So I went through all 4 levels of training so I could better represent my members in discipline. And I'm going to tell you what, I represented dozens of employees. I saved people's jobs. Ironically, I couldn't save my own, though. But did it matter because it was a principle to me? I defended people in discipline. I was a negotiator. I went to the table and negotiated for the best contract we can get. And I'm kind of a loud, aggressive guy, people would say, but it is what it is. This is who I am. I don't sugarcoat anything. So when I negotiated for my members, this is who I am. They didn't like it. You're aggressive. I'm not aggressive. I'm stating the facts. We need a better contract. You have the money, pull it out, whatever, because you negotiate for contracts. You're negotiating for salary and benefits and retirement. There's all so much you're negotiating for in a contract. So I was the president. I represented a lot of people in discipline and saved a lot of jobs. I was a negotiator. I also filed some high profile grievances where I won tens of thousands of dollars for my members because if the district didn't follow the contract, I'd grieve them. And there's a process. If they deny it, you have 10 days to file the next level and so on and so forth. And as an example, in 2016, it was leap year. And my employees worked an extra day in February, but they didn't get an extra day of pay. So I grieved it. I said, I think if they're working an extra day, they should get an extra day of pay. They denied it. We've never done that. I don't care. What's right is right. If these people are working an extra day, we should have more money. So I grieved it. It went all the way up to mediation and we won. The mediator from the state said, yeah, I agree. They worked an extra day. It cost the district, I think, around $14,000-$15,000 because they had to pay 75 employees a day of pay. Too bad. That was my job. I wasn't going to let the district railroad my members, but they sure railroaded me in the end. Doesn't matter. You know what, Steve? This is me. I never follow my own sword. If someone's going to get me, they're going to get me with their sword. I'm not going to follow my own sword. So they started coming after me. So, I was the union president. And here's another thing. So I'm the union president. It's kind of like now a lot of people are reaching out to me with things, concerns about the town. This happened at school district as well. And so what happened was people came to me and they said, hey, the superintendent, the chief business officer, these are the ones who run the district, right? Other than the school board. They're doing a lot of shady stuff. So I started looking into it. And here's one thing it's funny because our superintendent, he had a contract, right? And in his contract, he got $750 a month to obtain a vehicle and use his vehicle throughout the district and the county for district business. $750 a month. But what he was doing was he was using the district vehicle with taxpayer gasoline. His was parked under the shade structure and he was driving the district vehicle. And I said, wait a minute, you're double dipping. We're paying you $750 a month to use your own vehicle, but you're using the district. I reported to the school board, they didn't care, right? It's unethical, but it was also a violation of board policy. It was conduct unbecoming an employee. It was dishonesty. He was double dipping. And I complained about it. Well, at the time I'm fighting for what's right. All I'm doing is expanding the target on my back, right? Another quick story. So the chief business officer, he drove a BMW, right? Great. He got $475 a month auto allowance to acquire, insure, and maintain a vehicle. I had all their contracts. I knew them like the back of my hand. Well, one day I come into the district and the mechanics, our district mechanics, are working on his car. I'm like, what's going on here? So what did I do? I went to the
Wait,
mechanics.
wait, I
Dude, this is
wait,
real stuff.
wait. This wait, so not only were you were representing the union members, but you were finding out that district administration were having their cars worked on by staff of the district. What?
Yep, that's right. And so that that's part of my lawsuit. I was basically a whistleblower. I said, wait, I went to the mechanics and I said, what are you doing? Oh, well, he wants me to put a new emblem on his car. I said, while you're on duty? I mean, and that kind of stuff pisses me off, Steve. So then they told me, they sent emails to me that they've had them rotate their tires, drive their car if they hear a noise. This was a normal thing, and I was mad. So what did I do? I went to the school board. I went to the superintendent. You know what happened? Nothing, because these guys get away with it.
So you were bringing these issues up directly to the superintendent at the school district, and it just basically it fell on deaf ears.
I brought that issue to the superintendent because that's his boss. And in the superintendent using the car, I brought to the school board. That they don't. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They act like they care. They don't care. All they did was say, "Get rid of this guy," because next thing you know, I was there at that a couple of years before. No issues at all, no discipline. But all of a sudden, man, I'm hitting them with grievances and I'm being a pain in their butt. Next thing you know, oh, hey, this allegation came out. I'm like, what? And I laughed at it. I was like, that's funny,
So let
right?
me
Like,
stop you
of
there.
course they did.
Let me stop you there because that's what I want to know because I want to get into this and this will probably be the most uncomfortable part of the conversation because some of these you said allegations you're
Yeah,
referring to them as allegations. So we prior to you being the union president and you bringing these issues to the district superintendent about certain admin getting their cars worked on or whatever other crazy stuff was happening at that time prior to that, you said I think you said something here that you had no disciplinary action or something, or you had a you
zero,
so prior to you doing this with the district and bringing these issues to light and basically calling them out is what was going on. You had no write ups. You were never disciplined
nothing.
for anything.
They went from ideal employee to terminated. No write ups, no warnings, no suspensions, just from zero problems to terminated.
Interesting.
That's called a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. For lack of better terms, it was the witch hunt. And Dave Dencker was the witch. And that's a fact.
So how did this all play out? So I'm still trying to connect the dots here because I'm still confused on okay, I've got a little bit of this story here where you're saying you were the union president, you did all these great things for your union members. You got them paid for days they didn't get paid and all that. You fought for that stuff and all that. You brought up issues to the superintendent about admin, getting their cars worked on and who knows whatever else. I mean, there's probably a lot more that we could talk about, but like I said, we only have so much time. So you went from that, and then you said all of a sudden it became a witch hunt. What am I missing?
Witch hunt.
How did we go
Okay.
from that
Okay.
to
So I'm working. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I
yeah?
cut you off.
No, it's cool. I'm trying to there's something missing here that I'm not getting, and I'm not a stupid guy, but I mean, what am I missing? How do we go from you reporting admin issues to being fired for? And I haven't even talked about what's in the lawsuit that there's wording in there and things that
Yeah.
how do we go? What am I missing?
Here's what happened, Steve. I'm working in human resources, no problem. Everything's great. I thought. I get called in one day, or the chief personnel officer tells me, "Hey, Dave, so just to let you know, we're going to be investigating you." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "There's been multiple allegations made about you." And I laughed because that's my demeanor. Like, of course, okay, what did I supposedly do? Nothing bothers me because if it's not true, it doesn't bother me. It's fake. It's a lie. So he told me I'm being investigated. He goes, the district is hiring an investigating firm, and there's going to be an investigation moving forward. just keep working, just keep doing what you're doing. But I had to bring you in and let you know that you're being investigated. I said, okay, whatever.
Okay, now what did they say you were being investigated for at that time?
Well, at that point, he didn't give me specifics, said he couldn't. He just said there were multiple allegations of misconduct lodged against me. And and then so he tells me that. I'm I'm kind of thinking like I'm in my mind like, what did I do? Did I say something to somebody? What could have I done? I said, this is BS. I don't because I feel like if I would have said something to somebody that they didn't like, they would have told me or something. I just couldn't make sense of it, Steve. So whatever. I just kept working. And next thing you know, there was some couple they were females, couple of ladies that were there all of a sudden, like maybe a week later, and they were conducting interviews in one of the conference rooms. So I knew that's the investigation happening. I knew. I mean, I'm not stupid. Eventually, they brought me in and they asked me tons of questions about, did I say this? Did I say that? Have I ever made comments to people like this? And I'm like, nope, no, I never did that. That didn't happen, or that's not how it happened. Like one of those allegations, I think, was I had slapped my hand on the counter to scare somebody. And I said, I don't ever remember slapping my hand on the counter, number one. Number two, I said, did I yell boo when I did it? I mean, what? That's an allegation that I'm trying to intimidate someone by doing that. I said, so the bottom line is, Steve, I went through this investigation. I complied with the investigation. That's what I had to do. Well, what's funny is that when the investigation was over, what happened? Nothing, because they did not substantiate the claims that were made against me. So I received no discipline, no write-ups, because the firm that the district hired to investigate these allegations concluded that the allegations were not factual and they didn't substantiate the allegations. And again, I was like, of course it's because it's a lie. And when you put out the fact that the people who made the allegations, and I didn't know this till later, I got a copy of the actual investigative report. The group of people who made these allegations, they went to a lawyer first to try to sue me or the district or something. The lawyer told them they have to complain to the district before they can just get a lawyer. And again, I didn't know any of this till I received a copy of the investigative report. So I thought, oh, so they went to a lawyer. Lawyer told them you got to complain. So they all came back and they all filed complaints around the same time about me. Okay, the district did their due diligence. They hired a firm, they investigated, and then what? Not substantiated. So nothing happened to me. Well,
So okay,
I guarantee you what that. Go ahead.
yeah. So okay, I'm trying to connect the dots here because it never made any sense to me why there was a lawsuit that you filed against the district for wrongful termination. I knew there had to, like, the district just couldn't go and fire you. I know with school districts there's got to be a process, and I know unions involved and everything else, right? Like you had your union involved, I'm assuming, and so
Yeah.
you were union president. You were going to the district with issues that you found of admin, probably, stealing money. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but I mean, I would call it stealing money. If you're getting your car worked on by district staff, I mean, I would think that
Right.
would be considered stealing money because you're using taxpayer dollars that are paying these guys to work on your private car. But okay, enough said on that one. So you were reporting,
100% though.
yeah, you were reporting these things, and the district wasn't doing anything about it. And then you're saying you had no disciplinary issues prior to this issue. Then all of a sudden these allegations came up, and then the district hired an outside. Oh, let me bring Dave back on. The district hired an outside firm to investigate these issues against you, and they came back and said there was nothing there.
Yes. So they hired an outside firm. An investigation took place, and then when they came back, nothing happened. I got no disciplinary, no write-ups, nothing, because they said that the allegations that were made against me were unsubstantiated. And I said, well, of course, because it's all made up. It's a he said, she said. It's not it. So yeah, I always say like this: I escaped, right? I they proved me innocent. Their own investigative firm that they hired,
They proved
they
me
proved
innocent.
me innocent. And I said, well, That's, you know, I don't know if you're talking because you look kind of choppy. Can you hear me?
Okay. So, okay. Now,
Oh,
so
hey, you're
how
frozen,
did
Steve.
you, how did you, innocent, what am I missing here?
Hold on, Steve. You're like frozen.
You got me, Dave?
Yeah, you're back now, but you were frozen. Now you're good.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
Can't hear you.
My video was still rolling. Okay. It could be,
Yeah, I can't hear
internet, you
you.
know how that goes. So
Yeah,
I don't know
okay.
if you caught this. So you can't hear me at all? Okay.
Just
So
choppy.
let me back up here then, since we had a little technical drop. Let me back up here. So
Okay.
they found you innocent, but or they found you that you didn't do anything in this investigation, but you were still fired. What am I missing?
Well, so that was the start of it, Steve. I'm painting the picture. So they did this, right? I got no discipline, kept working, no issues. Um, the chief personnel officer at the time had now abruptly resigned his position. Don't know the story behind it, but he was gone. Doesn't matter. I kept working, doing my job. One day I'm at work and a sheriff's deputy walks in. He's all, good morning, good morning. And he's like, yeah, I was called to the district because I worked at the district office in human resources. Like I didn't work, some of the rumors out there, I worked at a high school, I worked at a school. No, I didn't. I worked at the district office in human resources, and no one had access to human resources except for human resources, right? So I'm sitting at my desk one morning and a sheriff deputy walks in. And these are all things that their little court document doesn't tell. Deputy walked in, said he was called to the district because I had a knife. And I said, a knife? And I said, yeah, I do have a knife. And I reached up on my desk where I had a pocket knife with a 2.5-inch blade. And I handed it to a deputy. And he said, what is it sitting on? I said, sit on my notepad. And I handed him the notepad too. And he said, there's names in this notepad. I said, yeah, I know. It's a notepad. I keep notes in it. Feel free to look at it. So he stood there and looked through the notepad, gave me my knife back, gave me my notepad back, and he said, I'll be back. So what he did was he went and got a camera. He came back in, took pictures of it, and he said, all right, just sit tight. He goes, I got to talk to some people. I said, okay. And again, what's going through my mind is, oh man, the witch hunt continues. Now what? They call the cops on me? That's fine. Deputy did what he was doing. I stayed there at my desk. And then when the deputy came back in, he came with a management level employee, and that'll make sense here in a bit. She came in and said, I need you to sign this. I said, what is it? Oh, they're putting you on admin leave. Excuse me. He said they're putting you on. Hold on a second, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry, dude.
So, well,
He
while you're
says,
taking that, while you're taking that drink, so in the documents that I have, that's public, the public can get this court case that you filed against the district. It's there. I mean, it's out in the public realm. All this other stuff we
yeah,
can't get because we either get it from you or we get it from the district. So, but I was wondering about the knife because the knife is mentioned in there, and it basically said that you had I think it said you had a 6.5-inch knife. But it doesn't say, I didn't read anywhere where the authorities were called.
I had a samurai sword. It was a 6-inch knife because they probably measured the handle. It was a pocket knife that I bought at AutoZone that I carried in my pocket when I was the warehouse guy. And I used it honestly most of the time to remove staples because that's what I chose to use. I would cut open boxes of paper or whatever, but it was a pocket knife, a regular folding pocket knife that I bought at AutoZone. But they tried to embellish it as if I had, like I said, a samurai sword or something at my desk, and I carried it around.
Well, let me ask you this,
That's not
because
the
like
case.
I said, I don't know what goes on in the schools. I don't know what school policies are. Was you having that pocket knife in your job position not allowed, or what am I missing here with the knife?
So number one, there's no policy that says I can't have a knife. And here's the thing: every grounds guy, every custodian, the warehouse guys, the maintenance guys, everybody carries a knife at work. I worked in an office where I wasn't at a school site, and I didn't even carry my knife. It just sat at my desk because I used it as a staple remover, envelope opener, whatever. And so, no, it didn't violate anything. And so what happened was they put me on admin leave. I contacted the union, of course. They said, "Man, they're coming after you, Dave. You've made their life miserable. They're coming after you." He says, "Listen, just hang tight till we get the sheriff's report back. That's all we can do at this point." So I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, like, it's a witch hunt. There's no other way to describe this. So we waited a couple weeks, whatever it was. Sheriff report came out, which I have a copy of. By the way, everything I'm telling you today, I have copies of it all, and you can lay your eyes on it if you want.
Well,
So
yeah.
I
So
get the sheriff's.
you have what you have the police report. You have you have documentation that has this in writing.
I
All
have
this stuff?
everything. I have the transcript from my administrative hearing. I've got all my witness statements. I've got everything pertaining to this whole situation.
Okay.
So sheriff report comes back, and what does it say? Nothing criminal took place, no law broken, report for report for information only, whatever. So when you read the police report, they interviewed like a half a dozen people. Did Mr. Dencker threaten you? No, but I feel threatened by Mr. Dencker. But did he ever threaten you? No. They go to the next person. Did Mr. Dencker ever threaten you? No, but I feel threatened by him. But he's never threatened you? No. This is all in the sheriff's report. So there's a story going out there. Had a knife and I was trying to hurt people. That's not true. And that is not true. The police report shows it. They interviewed the people who called on me. The superintendent, they called on me, right? It's funny is, and this is going to come up here in a minute, one of the allegers against me saw the knife at my desk. I wasn't even at work yet. The knife's been there for the whole time I worked in the department. Instead of taking the knife and going and locking it up somewhere, or what they do, they left it there. They took pictures of it, and then they all huddled in the office and called the sheriff. I wasn't even at work at that time. I got to work. That's when the sheriff made contact with me. So I'm like, if they are so afraid of it, I wasn't even at work. Just take it and go lock it in your desk. I mean, tell me to take it home. I never heard a word about it. But what's funny is
Well,
in the sheriff's
that's
report.
why. But hold on a second, no. But that's why I asked. See, I just try to keep things as factual as possible, right? I don't know what the district. I mean, if you were out of line, if you were out of policy, right, with the district, and you had a knife on school grounds, not school grounds, but the district office. If you weren't allowed to have a knife, but you said that everybody carries knives. I mean, like the maintenance guys, like everybody, like that's why I was asking you. I need to know, and I think the public needs to know. Were you not supposed to have a knife at work? I think that's a critical question to know.
There's no board policy. There is no board policy. In Ed Code, it mentions something about having a knife if you're at a school ground, if you're working at a school. That's in Ed Code. I didn't work at a school. I worked at the district office. There was no students in my vicinity. I wasn't at school. But what's funny about that is those warehouse guys and grounds guys and maintenance, they all work at schools every day and they have knives. But, it's like, well, they need a knife. Well, I mean, I used a knife every day too. The girl that shared my office, they asked her in a police report, "Does Mr. Dencker intimidate you?" No. "Do you have any problems with him?" No. "Have you ever seen this knife?" Yes. "What does he use it for?" She said the exact same thing to that deputy that I told the deputy. "Well, I've seen him use it to take staples out." There you go. I wasn't doing anything nefarious by having a pocket knife, but they wanted it to be nefarious. So they called the sheriff. And you know what? I said, okay. Sheriff did their investigation, and they concluded that nothing illegal took place, nothing criminal took place. There were no threats ever made. So I figured, okay, I'm going back to work. Because remember, at this time, I'm home on paid admin leave. Did I go back to work? No, I didn't go back to work. Because now what they did was they hired a different administrative or investigative firm. And now, when the sheriff report came back that nothing criminal took place, guess what happened? Oh, some new allegations surfaced, and I said, of course they did. So some new allegations now came out that I'm on admin leave And the sheriff's report didn't give them what they wanted, which was I was a criminal, right? Didn't give them the narrative they're looking for. So what they do now, there's new allegations, and we have a different firm. Why? The first firm didn't give them what they wanted, so they didn't want to hire them again. They hired a different firm. So they inform us of this. I'm working with the union, and the union's shaking their head. They're saying this is ridiculous. They're just coming, they're throwing mud on the wall till something sticks, is what they're doing. And I said, whatever. I said, I'm getting used to it by now. So this next firm, I did a little investigating into him myself. And from the very beginning, I found out that his secretary used to work for the district in human resources and was friends with one of the people making this allegation against me. And I was like, oh, my goose is cooked, man, because now they got a guy who's got an inside. His secretary used to work here and is friends with one of these workers. I said, this isn't going to come out good for me, because I said he shouldn't even be hired. It should be like a conflict of interest. His firm has something. He's attached to the district through his secretary. I said,
okay, so
right off the bat.
Hold on a second. There's a lot here, man. So I'm not trying to cut you off, but this there's a lot. We've gone from Robert Lucero holding up a court document on my podcast to like this, and this stuff is like this is a lot of information. I'm pretty good at digesting information. I'm relatively good at it, but there's a lot here, and so I got to put this all into context, just for me first, and hopefully people watching this get some context out of this here, because this is like this is crazy. So okay, so you worked at the Adelanto School District. You became the union president for CSEA. You were fighting the district over various issues for your members and different things like that. Not only that, you were bringing issues to the district about district admin probably getting things they shouldn't get for personal things, cars, different things like that, and all that good stuff. They do an investigation against you because some allegations wind up coming up. They find out in the first investigation that nothing was wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Everything was cool. Then they I don't know who they is. I don't even know who I'm referring to, but like then they call the police on you about you having a pocket knife on your desk, which you're saying you always had the pocket knife? Like you had always had it during your employment?
Yes. So let me go back for a second. You remember me telling you that the chief personnel officer had abruptly resigned. So they hired a new chief personnel officer, and I was actually on her interview panel, and that was my new boss. The week she started, she changed my job description. She changed my working hours. She was adding stuff to me that I never did before. And the first thing I did was say, did they hire her to come after me? Because I'd been in that department for 11 months. She was there 3 or 4 days, and she was already hammering me with, hey, your new hours are this. You're going to start doing this. You're going to start. So I went to the union. The union said, hey, we got to negotiate this job. We already have a job description. And so it started to be a back and forth with the new chief personnel officer and my job, because we saw right out of the gate. Now, this is before the sheriff was called. This all happened like a week after she was hired. She was changing my job description, changed my working hours. That same week is when the sheriff was called on the pocket knife. Now, the pocket knife, the sheriff investigated, nothing criminal, right? Should have went away, didn't go away. They got these new allegations about me. And honestly, the allegation came out. I laughed. I said, that's not true. I never said that. That's not, I said, whatever, investigate. But when I found out who the guy was, and he had ties to one of the people, whatever, because the secretary, I knew they're not going to quit. They're just not going to quit. I'm done. Because at that point, I could see the writing on the wall.
I need to ask you this because it's all over social media. I mean, this isn't. I'm not coming up with anything that I think you even commented to a post. So there was a member of the public who posted about this in the Apple Valley Public Forum Facebook group. That group, I am the admin of that group. That is a group I created, just in all transparency. And I do allow a lot of things that other Apple Valley Facebook groups do not allow to be posted. I just do. I believe it's good to have it all out there, right? So this post came out, I don't know, yesterday, day before, whatever. It's irrelevant when it came out, but there are some accusations that you are a racist. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff in the court document that you were accused of saying in regards to, I think it was something about gays, other stuff like that. So I got to ask you because I think it's critical for the public to know
Yeah,
this.
100%.
What
And I'll be straight honest with everything. I have nothing to hide. So number one, the allegation was something about me. I said something about gays, and I did tell an employee something about gays. But here's what I said: we had tried to hire a guy, and he went to hired because he was dirty. His drug test was dirty, and me and my coworker, who's a management level person, were having an argument about it because she thought it shouldn't matter. He's a good guy. He's got good work history. His dirty drug test shouldn't stop him from getting hired. And I disagreed. And I said, I don't make the rules. The chief personnel officer, the original one, made the decision, not me. And I said, she was saying, well, this isn't a free country. Because if it was a free country, they wouldn't have all these stupid rules about who could do this and who could drink that and who could smoke that. I guess she was like a pro pot smoker. I don't know. Didn't matter. But we were arguing about it. So I had gone to the other person's office who made the allegation against me. And I said, she asked me what's going on. And I said, well, we're having a debate over this guy not getting hired because he's dirty on his drug test. And she says, well, we're just talking. And I was upset. And I said, you know what? I said, America's the best country in the world. I said, do you know there are countries in this world that will cut your head off if you're Christian or gay? Which is true. And it's Iran, right? And this girl agreed. And it's funny because this lady, she had a gay son. And I knew she had a gay son. But I did make that statement. I said, hey, this is the best, because that lady was saying, oh, this isn't a free country, and the other one. And I said, this is the best country in the world. And I said that there are countries out there that would cut your head off for being Christian or gay. That was my statement. Well, 3 or 4 months later, however long it was, she was one of the allegations that surfaced about me. I said all gays should have their head cut off. Say that? Now, what context would I ever even say that? Makes zero sense. And I laughed. I said, that's such a lie. I said, that's not what I said. This is what I said. Well, why would you say that? I said, I explained it to him. Me and the other person had a debate. She was talking crap about America being not a free country, whatever. I explained it to him. Okay, we don't believe you. Okay, well, whatever. It's fact. This is fact. This is what I said. So then that was one of the allegations, right? And I even to this day, I'll be honest with you, and I mean, I'm running for mayor of Apple Valley, but regardless, my morals mean more to me than that. I never said that. I have gay family members. I wouldn't say that. What relevance would that have to me in my life? It was a lie. It was a bull-faced lie. And that's exactly what was said. And then the other allegation against me was that I said we shouldn't hire blacks. And that's a lie too. And I told them, listen, I've said on dozens of interview panels as a chapter president, go pull all my interview packets because everything's kept. Because when you're interviewed for the district, it's ranked. Let's say there's 5 people interviewing, you rank them 1 through 5. And in the person with the lowest rank, that's your selection. That kind of gets away from favoritism and stuff, right? I told him, you know what? Go pull all my interviews. Look how many black people I've chosen as my number one choice. And I said, and this is all a lie. You know what the district did? They didn't do it. I have a letter from the union requesting all that documentation, and the district never supplied it. Why wouldn't they supply it? Why wouldn't they give me
so wait a
the
minute.
data I need? This is all fact, man.
No,
I got it all.
No. No, that's cool. I mean, it's up to you to defend the story, right? I mean, it's out there now in the public realm. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
I knew about it. I mean, Robert Lucero brought it up on the podcast here, but I knew there was more to this because I was like, wait a minute, why would he sue the district for wrongful termination? Because I don't know the whole process with the school district and the unions, but I knew there was a process that they just wouldn't walk in the office one day and fire you. I mean, I knew that wasn't that I knew. I just didn't know how this whole thing went down. But let me ask you this. So you said you sat on a hiring panel that
Yeah,
hired a
many of them.
variety of hired a variety of backgrounds of people, but you
Yes.
were being accused of saying you would never hire somebody that was black? But you
Yeah,
did
I was
hire
being
somebody
accused of saying, yeah, I've
but you
hired
did hire
multiple people I chose. There's people there now that are black that I chose as my number one choice that work there. So this was a lie. And I tried to tell them, listen, it's an allegation. I don't know why they're doing it. I said, I know why they're doing it because the last couple attempts didn't get rid of me. So here you go. And here's the thing, Steve, these two allegations that now they were going to fire me over, not classified union members, not employees, two management level employees said, I made these statements, no witnesses. They never reported to anybody. They never sent an email about it. They never wrote a note in their journal about it. They just remembered I made those comments several months earlier, and now we're coming forward with these comments. Of course you are. It's a witch hunt, man. So I told the union, they said they'd sent a letter to the district saying provide these documents. They never did. And what else can I do? I mean, that's all we could do, right? So at this point, while I'm on admin leave, they got this second investigator investigating those two allegations. And that same investigator is talking about that knife. And he's sorry, he's still stuck on it's illegal. But the deputy came out and he said, well, deputy doesn't know his job. I said, oh, so you're a PI and you're saying that the sheriff's deputy came out and conducted investigation, interviews, and everything, and he was wrong. Yeah, he's wrong. Whatever.
so
They
during
have their
this second
narrative.
so during this second investigation of you, the investigative guy or whatever his position is, uh, the investigative guy, we'll call him the investigative guy. The investigative guy said in the investigation that the law enforcement officer was incorrect in giving you a
Yes,
clean police report.
yes. He thought his opinion of the knife superseded the sheriff's opinion. So what it was is it's the writing was on the wall, right? The district wanted a narrative, and he was giving them the narrative they wanted. You're a racist, you're a homophobe, and you're a psychopath with a knife. That's basically what it boiled down to. So I'm on admin leave still. Once he conducted his investigation, then the district notified me that they're taking me. Well, let me back up real quick. That new chief personnel officer, the one who essentially called the police on me that morning and changed my job description and all that, she had she had changed the job description, and I knew all the job descriptions. And one day I saw a job posting where they removed the requirement of an associate's degree and made it to a high school diploma. And one of the girls who made these allegations against me, she's the one who posted that description online. So I went to her office and I said, who changed this job description? Because everything there's a job description, it goes to the school board for approval. And at the bottom, it says board approved on this date. Well, I knew that that description was changed, and it was changed recently because I know the job descriptions. And when I told this girl, who told you? She said, you're going to get me fired. And I said, who told you to change this job description? And she said, she showed me a post-it and it said, change this job description. And it was the new chief personnel officer told her, take off the requirement for associate's degree and change it to diploma only. Because the girl that they had working in that position as a fill-in position, she didn't have an associate's degree. She only had a diploma, but they wanted her to have the position. So they altered the job description so she would get the job. That's cronyism. That's favoritism. That's the kind of stuff I don't agree with, right? And ironically, that same girl that they wanted to change the job description for, she was one of the ones that made the previous allegations against me. They don't like it because I was disrupting their little program of BS. So I reported that to the school board. I said, your new chief personnel officer just violated board policy. She's being dishonest, conduct unbecoming. She's changing. She had a job description changed and posted without going to the board. So what they do, they pulled the posting, went to the board approved it, then they put it back out there, and then that person got the job exactly the way they wanted it to happen. And these are the things I
Okay,
pointed out, right?
no, I totally understand all that. I get all that.
Okay.
No, I get all that. I just want to make sure, because we're getting towards the end here, and I got to tell you, this is a lot of information. This is,
Yeah.
and let me just say a few things here. Let me try and bring this in here, because from the podcast that I did with Robert Lucero, where he held up your court document papers, and then me getting a copy of that court document, I didn't know about a lot of this stuff. I didn't know about 2 investigations. You're saying the first investigation, cleared you. They called the police on you. I had no idea about the whole police thing. And I think, although I think it is in the court documents, maybe, I don't know, but whatever. You told the story here. The police officer found no criminal activity. But what I'm trying to understand here is there anything else? Is there anything else in this timeline that I should know and the public should know? What is there anything else we're missing here?
Well, I mean, that second investigation was going on. Once that guy determined that he believed the girls over, the knife was illegal, and the statements were made. So the district contacted me and said, "You're no longer on paid admin leave. Now you're on unpaid leave." So what did I do? No, the union's involved the whole time, of course, but I requested, and that they said, "We're going to recommend your termination." So I immediately requested an administrative hearing, which is the process you go through with the union. Means they'll find a hearing officer out there, and they'll schedule a date, and there'll be a hearing, and everything will come out. So when they told me I was on unpaid leave, I applied for unemployment, and they denied it. So I requested an unemployment hearing, which if people ever done it, you could do that. I requested a hearing, and we had a hearing over the phone where the administrative person for unemployment was hearing over it. Me. Well, the district got on their phone call with about 5 witnesses, and then the witnesses started like crying and everything else because how scared they are of me. And they asked the new superintendent now, because the superintendent's changed during this process, is what's his main thing of being terminated for? Why is he terminated? She said the knife. And the administrative person from unemployment said, was he ever written up, disciplined about having the knife, told to take the knife home? Anything about the knife? She said no. Okay, then you can't deny his unemployment. You never told him not to take the knife to work, so you can't fire him for having a knife at work. So, like I said, they never said a word to me. They just did this. So, moral story is I won my unemployment appeal, and I received unemployment. So that was just one more thing. The first investigation, the sheriff's report. Now the unemployment person ruled in my favor. So I'm just home waiting for my hearing to tell my story. And while I'm waiting, it was like a month or 2 months later scheduled for. And so while it's funny, Steve, because no one knows this stuff, but so I'm home waiting for my hearing date. And next thing you know, the union reaches out to me. And they're like, "Hey, Dave, we got an offer on the table." I said, "An offer of what?" "The district's offering you a buyout." I said, "A buyout for what?" "They want to pay you, dude." He goes, "They want to pay you $50,000 to walk away." I said, "They want to give me 50 grand to walk away?" They emailed me the offer. I read it. Yeah. They said to me, "We will give you $50,000 to resign due to a difference in the parties. But one of the caveats was an NDA. You can't discuss this with anybody." You know what I did? Rip, not taking it. No thanks. I don't need your 50 grand. My morals mean more to me than your money. So I turned it down. And the union was actually shocked. They said, "You're turning down 50 grand here, and you don't know what's going to happen at the hearing." I said, "I'll take my chances. I'm not taking their money. I'm never going to take hush money."
Okay, so
and I've got a copy of it.
you have an actual copy of the offer that the district
100%.
offered you?
Everything I'm telling you, I have a copy of it. They offered me $50,000 to walk away. No thanks.
So, okay. This is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, I just don't, this is absolutely insane. Okay. So like I said, I don't have a problem processing information, but there's a lot going on here right now. So okay. So they did the second investigation was done. You went to this unemployment. You fought for your unemployment because the district said, "No, we're not going to pay you unemployment." They ruled that they couldn't fire you for the knife in the unemployment case. They couldn't they were someone, I guess, wrongly firing you for the knife because they never ever disciplined you for the knife, so they wound up giving you unemployment, correct?
Right. Right.
Okay, and then after that after that unemployment issue, the school district came and offered you a $50,000 buyout?
Yeah. So while I was waiting for my hearing, my administrative hearing that I requested, while I was waiting for that date to arrive, they offered me $50,000. And I could have taken it, walked away, and this wouldn't be happening today, right? Because I wouldn't have got a lawyer at the end of the day or nothing. But no, I told them, no, I'm not taking your money. I didn't do nothing wrong. These are lies. This isn't true. It was a railroading. It was a witch hunt. And I said, I'm not taking your money.
I
I'm not
think
taking
something
it.
that
So yeah. And it,
I yeah, what I'm trying to process right now, this is interesting because the district was going through all of this process to, what it looks like is to remove you with all these investigations. You had the police called on you about a knife that nothing went, nothing happened there. They So it just doesn't. I'm confused on why the district, after going through all this process, would now come to you, the guy who had a knife, was threatening people, is a racist, a homophobe, and all this other stuff, and the district decides to offer you 50 grand to keep your mouth shut because you're saying they wanted to give you 50 grand and then sign an NDA so you would never talk about all of this stuff happening. So when you say you would had to have
yeah.
you would have had to have signed an NDA, meaning you could have never have talked about the issue of like the mechanics working on private cars and stuff like that. Is that what they were? I'm trying to figure out what they were trying to get you not to talk about.
So I don't know. Well, I don't know if it was just about the process of the termination, the process of the agreement. I don't know if they were telling me I couldn't talk about the settlement agreement offer terms or because I never accepted it, so I never discussed it with them. So I don't know if they were just talking about the whole everything in general. Like tonight, we kind of told the story of everything in general, what happened. I don't know if that's what they meant or if it was just what's in the actual agreement itself, which is like a few pages long. It didn't matter to me. All I know is they were offering me $50,000, and one of the lines in there was, "I can't discuss this. I can't discuss this, the terms, or I can't discuss it with anybody." Whatever. It was an NDA,
I just
and I'm
don't.
like, wait, so they're trying to buy my silence for 50 grand?
It just doesn't make sense to me. If you were this evil, dreaded guy within the school district, they supposedly proved it, right? Oh, he had a knife, he had this, he had all this stuff, and he's a racist, whatever. I don't understand if they wanted to fire you and that was their ultimate goal, why would they come to you with this buyout offer? It's just odd.
Well,
It's
Steve,
like
my
they didn't
opinion
think
is
that
they
you were
had a weak.
really, go ahead.
I think they had a weak case, and they didn't know what the outcome would be of the hearing either. Because I said the same thing, and the union was pushing for me to accept it. They said this is like one of the bigger buyouts we've ever negotiated. This doesn't happen. They don't just do
Wow.
this. And I said they're not doing it today either because I'm not taking it. And I didn't. I've always said this. I'd rather live behind a dumpster, homeless, than give up on my morals. I'm not giving up on my morals. I did nothing wrong. Period. These are allegations against me. It's funny. The day the sheriff came, just to back up real quick, that new chief personnel officer puts a memo out to all the district staff, and it says a district employee was in possession of a dangerous object today, and he was removed for all of our safety. Really? And that dangerous object was on my desk for the last 11 months, and it wasn't dangerous until they wanted it to be dangerous, right? I've got that email too, because it was a witch hunt from the beginning. And all the way up to the hearing, took place, Steve, they had two people say, I made these allegations. No witnesses, no proof. It's a he said, she said. One of those witnesses, the union was doing a great job being my lawyer, basically. They had a lawyer doing their stuff. She was dishonest during her testimony on 3 occasions, and the union brought it out of her and proved that she's being dishonest. And we were assuming that the hearing officer would throw her testimony out and her allegation because the union proved that she had been dishonest 3 different times during her testimony. But that hearing officer didn't even consider any of that. Then they didn't consider I had like 6 witnesses that testified on my behalf who worked with me through the district. And these witnesses were females, Hispanics, blacks, whites, a bunch of different group of people that I worked with, all said, this is ridiculous. We don't see, this is not Dave. This is not his character. You know, they were basically my witnesses on my behalf, like character witnesses. The hearing officer didn't consider any of that either. So when it was all said and done, a month or 2 later, the hearing officer determined that the district had the right to terminate me. Well, yeah, anybody could terminate anybody for any reason, but he didn't take into consideration my whistleblowing, my union activity, which is called concerted activity with my union, right? He didn't take, it's funny, Steve, real quick. During my hearing, the previous superintendent who's no longer worked there, he was a witness for the district on a call-in witness. So they asked him, did Mr. Dencker ever threaten you? He said, yes, he did. And the union said, he did? Yes. Oh, well, can you tell us about that threat? Well, one time in a meeting, Mr. Dencker told me that he hasn't played all his cards yet. And the union said, wait a minute. That we mean like, did he ever threaten you physically? Oh, no, he never threatened me physically. He just told me he never played all his cards. And the union said, that's not a threat. And that was his testimony. He was also interviewed by the sheriff back when the sheriff was called and said, I've never threatened him. So they were just reaching whatever they can do to get me fired. It worked because the hearing officer eventually said, yeah, you know.
No, I get it. And look, here's the thing, and here's what I will say to everybody watching this. You know, it's not my place to decide whether you're racist or whether you were threatening people, whatever. You said you have documentation that I don't have, that the public doesn't have, and in this whole thing. And I knew there was a broader story to this. I knew there was. I didn't know what it was. And some of the stuff today, I'm going to have to think about it for a while because it's crazy to me. This buyout thing is really odd. That whole buyout. I mean, they go through this whole process of investigating you and calling the police and doing all this stuff. And then they want to come to you and give you 50 grand to walk away. That just doesn't, if they wanted to fire you, they should have just fired you. Right. It's really odd to me. And here's what I will say to the public. I'm glad I was able to have this conversation with you. You know, you had your chance to explain it. I think that's critical too when it comes to campaigns, because you are running for mayor of Apple Valley. So is Robert Lucero. So is Scott Nassif. Look, the mayor of Apple Valley, while he was the sitting mayor, had a lawsuit against him in his business for wage violations. You know, he settled for $450,000. I'm not bringing that up to attack the mayor right now. All I'm saying is there are a lot of issues that people have in their lives over time, right? That could be used in a campaign. And what I will say to you, I'll say it to Robert Lucero, and I'll say it to Scott Nassif and anybody else running for office. If you have dirt on a guy and you think it's dirt and you think it's going to damage that guy you're running against, then put the information out and let us, the public, take it and roll with it and make our decision, right? Otherwise, I mean, you can't just throw snippets out there for people and hope things stick. You know, I believe everyone has a right to defend themselves on accusations. You know, they do. Yeah. They just do. And it's not my place to sit here and say, oh, Dave, hey, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. I wasn't there at that time. I mean, I can tell you this, and this might relate to a lot of people. I mean, look what happened to Renee Longshore as a sitting school board member. They censured her because she's been asking questions and doing certain things.
Prime example.
I've seen people get up for public comment at AVUSD and say there's retaliation happening in the district if people speak up. I think anybody in a school district. Well, I mean, are those people lying?
It's true.
I mean, are they not having retaliation happen? I don't know. I can only go off of what people say. So if someone believes this issue with you at the Adelanto School District is an issue that should discredit you from being mayor of Apple Valley, then they need to come out and prove why it is, right? I mean, and if you
Steve,
have
let me say
documentation.
this. What's that, Steve?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you know what? This is the story. This is what happened. Anybody, any day, anytime could make an allegation against anybody. There's no proof to it, right? I could say you told me something yesterday. You say I never said that. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. It's a he said, she said. But the way this took place, the continuous effort against me, they wanted a narrative pushed and they pushed it. And they did. And they won because they had deeper pockets. I wrote a book about this, Steve, and it's called The Modern Day David versus Goliath. Of course, it never went nowhere. I never published it, but I do have a book that I wrote right after this. Now, this happened 8 years ago. And I wrote a book telling the story I told today on this podcast in my book because I was villainized. I was made to be a bad guy, and I'm not a bad guy, right? I'm blunt. I say it like it is, but those allegations against me were lies. And there's going to be people out there like the individuals sharing this. Go ahead. I'm not running a smear campaign. I guarantee you Lucero's got dirt in his background. I know he does, but that's not my game. I'm not smearing him. That's not what I'm here for. I want to run off the issues, and I want to make a change in Apple Valley, and I want the people of Apple Valley to have a choice. And that's why I'm doing this. I knew I got fired from the school district. Did it stop me from doing this? No, because I knew there's a story behind it. Anybody who's worked for a school district, they will railroad you and terminate you and retaliate against you. Just like I've been retaliated from people who support this town council with doxing and getting sued, trying to get a restraining order. It's no different. When you stand up against the narrative, you become a target, and they're relentless and they're deep pocketed, and most of the time you can't win. So at the end of the day, that lawsuit that everybody's showing around internet, I got an attorney. I filed a lawsuit trying to get my job back. And what we asked the court is, hey, take another look at this because the hearing officer didn't consider the whistleblowing. They didn't consider my union activity. They didn't consider the stuff I exposed. They didn't consider my witness statements. The hearing officer didn't consider that the person was lying under oath. I don't even know if she was sworn in. I know there was a court reporter there because I've got all the what is it, the court like the record of the hearing, right? Not the court. I never went to court. I was never arrested, never sued. This was all administrative through the union. And, that hearing officer didn't consider any of that stuff. So my lawyer said to the court, he didn't consider all this stuff before making his decision. So we should, can the court look at it? And from what I understand from my lawyers, the court said, this has already been heard through an administrative process. We're going to uphold the district's decision because it's already taken place. It's already been heard. Now, I wish I would have not done that and just went right to a lawyer because then it would have went into a court. And then maybe people wouldn't have lied now if it was in court, right? So, but it's water under the bridges 8 years ago. And I'm not afraid to come on here and tell my story because those are the facts. Now, people can go on there on social media, Lucero's campaign or whoever these people are that are fighting all his battles for him because he hasn't said a word to me. I see him face to face at the meetings. He doesn't say a word, right? I'm cordial. Hey, Rob, he don't say nothing. You know what? That's not the way I play. If I got something to tell you, I'm going to tell you your face. This guy, people are coming out of me that Rob's the best thing since mashed potatoes and Dave Denker's a rot SOB. I've been called that before, right? It's not stopping me. I hope people see through this, see what this is. This was a witch hunt, and I was a witch. Luckily, I got off the post before they burned me. I lost my job. So what? I didn't give up on my morals, and I'll never give up on my morals. That's all I can say, man. This is all fact.
Yeah. And I mean, look, it's up to the public. I mean, and I'll say that with any candidate. I don't care what pops up on anybody, anywhere, anytime in this campaign. It's up to the public to ultimately make up their mind of what they believe and what they don't believe. It's not my place to, sway this either way. Now, of course, let me throw this in here because I've seen some comments with me saying that, oh, I'm biased and I favor you as a candidate. Well, you know what? I don't favor anybody. I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm not backing anybody. I'm just trying to give people the information that they need to make an informed vote here in Apple Valley. Now, if people perceive because you're on my platform a lot that I'm biased and support you, well, they're misguided too because you're the one that's always at the town council meetings giving public comment. I record public comment at town council meetings. I post them. I've posted Ted Bohannon. I've posted Matt Rutledge. I've posted Robert Lucero's comments. I've had Robert Lucero on a podcast with me. I've had Ted Bohannon on. I've had Matt Rutledge on. I'm about to have Carrie Leone, Councilmember Carrie Leone, join me as soon as we can get a date dialed in. I'll have Robert Lucero back on with me. I'll have you back on. I don't care. I don't support anyone specifically. But if you're going to be more high profile and you make it on my platform, you make it on my platform. I can't stop you from coming and giving public comment at the town council meetings. So I'm not here to defend you. It's not my job to defend you. It's your job to defend you. Steve Famiano is not here to defend anybody. I'm here to get the information out to the public so the public can decide what they want to decide. And that's what's important, and that's what's critical about the platform that I do. Now, there might be a few individuals out there who believe I should be doing something different and jumping in this campaign to take people down or do whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to campaign for people. It's not my job to campaign for people. Like I said, if somebody in this campaign, honestly, let me tell you this. You and Robert Lucero are trying to take down a guy. When I say take down, I don't mean, you're trying to remove a guy that has been in Apple Valley politics for a very long time. 24 years that Scott Nassif has been on the Apple Valley Town Council. He wants 2 more years. This is not a race between David Dencker and Robert Lucero. This is a race to take down Scott Nassif, the incumbent. So if David Dencker and Robert Lucero want to go at it, well, guess who wins? Scott Nassif. And I'm assuming Scott Nassif's got to be sitting back going, yeah, I hope these two guys go at each other like crazy, right? I hope they just keep going at each other because it only benefits him. I mean, so not to focus on the incumbent doesn't make any sense to me from your standpoint or anybody else's standpoint or any race. If there's 2 challengers in the race for mayor of Apple Valley. Totally understand that. But Lucero's not in the position.
That's why, Steve. Listen, I'm a challenger. Right? I'm challenging Nassif. I think we deserve better in Apple Valley. I haven't been running a smear campaign against Lucero. For whatever reason, I'm his public enemy number 1. He's got it in for me. Go ahead, dude. I don't care. I don't have time to focus on you and your smear campaign. And now he's got other people jumping in. I don't care. I'm doing a podcast. I explained what happened. I'm done with it. I'm rolling forward with my campaign. I'm doing what I'm doing. Hitting the streets, meeting the people, trying to earn votes, because it's all about making a change at town hall, not fighting with Robert Lucero. That's just not my deal. I know he's got dirt in his background. That's for, I don't go out and look for people. Hey, dig them. People can do what they want. I'm not focused on him. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get that. I mean, you do focus on the challengers too, because there could be, this thing they call vote splitting and all this other stuff. But my point is, no matter if it's you, Robert, Dave, or not Dave, or Joe, or John, or Jesse, or whatever, both of you challengers are trying to take down a guy who's 24 years entrenched in the Apple Valley Town Council. If the Apple Valley public decides to vote for Scott Nassif again, then that's what we roll with, right? Yeah, I've been critical of the council. I've been critical of the mayor. There's things I support the mayor on. I've been critical of the mayor too, but that doesn't mean I support you or I support Lucero or I support anybody else. I've already publicly said I don't support anybody in this. I'm here to get the information out to the public, like I did today with this very long podcast that we did, to try and give you a chance to explain what all this stuff is that's being said about what happened to you at the Adelanto School District. It's not my place to judge on it. What I heard today is somewhat shocking to me. This buyout thing is still stuck in my head. I'm like, I just don't understand. If you were such a threat to people at the district and you were such a racist and homophobe and everything else, why didn't the district just roll through and fire you? Why come to you with an offer for 50 grand to keep you to I'm blown by that. It's just fascinating. So I know, look, we've been on a long time. I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, this is now up to the Apple Valley public to take what you've said. They can digest it. They can figure out what they want to believe, what they don't want to believe, and I guess they can reach out to you too individually. And if they have any further questions,
I'll be at my meet and greet Saturday at Fries Galore. Come out and talk to me.
That's probably a good time for them to come and talk to you to see, you know, if they have more questions about this. I'll probably have some more questions about this once I think about it, because it's a fascinating story. You know, this is fascinating. This is a fascinating story. I mean, I'm just,
and you know what it is? It's a nonfiction story too, right? This is facts, right? When I tell you today what happened to me, and this is what happened to me, you know, and that's a fact. And if anybody's ever worked for anybody and you report something, or you think something's not right and you report it, next thing you know, you're on the street because they retaliated. This is what happens in life, right? People want you to walk through life with your head down and your mouth shut, and that's not me. I've never done it. Hey, personal sacrifice. I lost a good job and I didn't get the 50 grand. Don't matter. I'm the wrong guy to put my head down and keep my mouth shut. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have probably taken the 50 grand. That's a lot of money in one lump sum, but it's interesting that you didn't take it. That's a whole nother fascinating story we could talk about down the road. But I appreciate you coming on. David Dencker, mayoral candidate for town of Apple Valley. Of course, the election is in November of this year. Like Dave said, you can catch him out on the campaign trail, and I'll definitely try to have you back on again down the road here. Maybe we could talk about some issues and things like that. Like I said, this topic is something that the public is going to have to also digest, and they're going to have to make up their mind whether they believe the story, whether they agree with it, whether that's up to them. It's not up to me to sway it one way or another. I wouldn't do that with you. I wouldn't do that with Scott Nassif. I wouldn't do that with Robert Lucero either, or any other candidate. I just want to get the information out to the public, and I appreciate you taking the time to tell me the story today, because it's an interesting one. All right, Dave, I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Steve.
All right, take care. Wow. I didn't expect to hear what I heard on that one. I did not expect to hear some of that. Really fascinating story about how David Dencker was the union president, was bringing up all these issues with the Adelanto School District, and then all of a sudden these what he calls allegations were popping up against him, and then he had the one investigation, found he did nothing wrong. They called the police on him about this knife. The police said there's no criminal activity here. This guy's not threatening anybody. And then they do another investigation, and then somehow these other two, allegations stick somehow. Then he asked for, his unemployment, and the unemployment rules that he deserved the unemployment because he couldn't have been fired for this knife, because they never told him about the knife. They never disciplined. There's no write-ups about the knife. And then the district comes and offers this guy 50 grand. They offer him 50 grand and basically saying, hey, or take the 50 grand and go away, please, and just keep your mouth shut. What a story. This is crazy. And it's funny. I mentioned this during the podcast here a few seconds ago. We hear a lot here in town at the Apple Valley Unified School District. And I'm not saying the district is doing this. Don't get me wrong when I bring this up, but you hear a lot of the public comment that goes on at the school board meetings, and people saying, hey, I feel that I've been retaliated against. If a teacher speaks out on something, they might get moved to somewhere, or something happens to them. You hear that word retaliation a lot when it comes to school districts. And This story somewhat sounds similar to that, right? And like I said, this is up to the public to decide. Steve Famiano and the voice of Apple Valley is not going to be the judge, jury, and executioner for everybody running for office. I'm just not going to take that approach. Yeah. Now, will I have a take on certain things? Yeah, of course I have a take on what Mayor Nassif has done. That's just what I've done. I critique what he's done. He's the sitting mayor, so we can do that. I mean, why would you come after a challenger even harder than you do the sitting mayor, who's responsible for $140 million budget of our tax dollars? So, but that doesn't mean I don't agree with the mayor either. But I'm not going to be the judge, jury, and executioner for anybody's campaign. If somebody's campaigning against somebody and they have information on somebody, it's up to that person campaigning to put that information out publicly and not wait for others to do it. And that wasn't my job when this issue came up on the podcast with Robert Lucero. Now, I did some research, but because of school district, records being private and not being able to find that, I didn't know any of what David just said on this podcast. I had no idea. This buyout thing is fascinating to me. It's just it's going to take me a while to kind of put it all into context, So, like I said, you as the public, I'm trying to give you the information from the candidates. I don't want Steve Famiano and the voice of Apple Valley to be the one to lead you to a certain vote. You guys have to decide the direction you want for Apple Valley and the direction you want from those who are running. Because for mayor in Apple Valley, there's only three choices that are on the ballot. The incumbent, Scott Nassif, with 24 years experience, David Dencker, a new guy on the political scene in Apple Valley, and Rob Lucero, who's also a new guy on the political scene in Apple Valley. Those are the three choices for mayor of Apple Valley. One of those three guys is going to lead Apple Valley the next 2 years after the November election. And you, the public, have to have as much information as possible to decide who you believe is best set to lead the residents and lead this town into the future. That's the point. So take whatever information you got today from David Dencker and his explanation of what happened to him at the Adelanto School District and roll with it. If you were going to vote for the guy, you could say, I'm not going to vote for him now. Okay, well, that's your choice. But at least you have the information and you heard directly from the guy himself. And I'll do that for anybody running for office. If something pops up where somebody gets attacked on something or whatever it is, I will give them the platform to explain what it is that issue is about. I think that's the fair thing to do. So I appreciate David Dencker coming on today and joining me here on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast, the longest podcast ever done so far, almost an hour and a half now. Hope you enjoyed it today, and I have got more candidates coming up very soon here on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast from Apple Valley and across the high desert as we get closer to Election Day 2026. Steve Famiano for the Voice of Apple Valley. We'll see you soon.